Hey guys, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Batwoman Season 1 review series, and today I am going to be talking about episode 14, which is called Grinning from Ear to Ear. Now, when I first heard the name for this episode, my initial thought was we're actually going to see the Joker make his Arrowverse debut. That unfortunately didn't happen, but some of his influence was felt throughout the course of this episode. Now, when I think of the word grinning, there is only one person I associate the word grinning with, and that is none other than the Joker, of course. But unfortunately, he wasn't in this episode, which is a shame really, because I felt this could have been a golden opportunity to bring in, quite possibly the most iconic villain of all time, and certainly in the history of Batman. But this episode was still pretty good. I do think episode 13 was a little bit stronger, because I really enjoyed the dark, horror, gothic aspects of that episode, and it was a little bit stronger. But episode 14 was still quite enjoyable, but as I said already, I think episode 13 was a little bit better. So, with that all said, let's get right into it. Let's talk about episode 14, Grinning from Ear to Ear. So, this episode takes us back to 2011, where we see a young woman named Julia frantically puts makeup on her face, but looks in the mirror and sees a grotesque reflection of herself, and in a fit of rage she breaks the mirror and uses the pieces of glass to scar both sides of her face, creating this nasty looking smile in a very similar manner to how the Joker looks from The Dark Knight. So already there are some little hints and influences of the Joker being felt in this episode already. So we cut to the present day, and both Kate and Sophie are constantly grilled by Luke and Mary about the kiss on the rooftop, which we saw at the end of episode 13. So by text, Kate as Batwoman invites Sophie to meet at Sophie's apartment. Later, Batwoman meets Sophie on the balcony and tells her they should walk away from a relationship before either of them gets hurt. Sophie understands and goes to kiss Batwoman anyway, but just as she's about to, she hears someone enter her apartment. Sophie goes to investigate and finds it's her mother who is making a surprise visit to see her. A social media influencer named Kimberly gets attacked while at a photo shoot, leaving her with scars very similar to what we saw at the beginning of the episode. The next day, Kate and Luke investigate the attacker, who is dubbed the Slashionista. Okay, odd name for a villain, but we'll roll with that. Kate goes to visit Mary about the attacks, and Mary argues that she's no longer famous enough to be a target. Mary points Kate to Dr. Ethan Campbell, a plastic surgeon who worked on Kimberly. Mary volunteers to help Kate investigate, but she turns it down. Now, Mary, as we saw at the end of episode 13, she's slowly starting to put all of the pieces together and is slowly working out that Kate is actually Batwoman, and she wants to be in on the secret, of course, and play a big part. But obviously Kate doesn't want Mary involved because she just wants to protect her. But I can probably see Mary ending up being a full-time member of the team with Kate and Luke, because she's awesome. She's very spunky, she's very feisty and very bubbly, and she's a great gal to have around. And it would be kind of nice to have her on board full-time, and you need someone like that, because Luke's more like the scientific guy, the whiz kid with all the gadgets, and Kate's like super serious. So you need kind of that comedic balance between the two, otherwise the dynamic's going to be very boring. But we'll see how this goes really, but I'm liking where it's going so far. Sophie's mother confronts her about separating from Tyler and asks how she's going to work after being suspended. She also tells Sophie she doesn't agree with Batwoman's values, or particularly the fact that she's a lesbian. Sophie later tells Batwoman about this, and Batwoman tells her about the lead on Campbell. Sophie visits Campbell and they both determine that the woman in question might be inflicting the same scars onto other women. Campbell reveals that he worked on a woman with those scars 8 years ago, and that person was none other than Julia Dent. Now, for many of you who are very familiar with that last name, Julia Dent is the niece of, you guessed it, Harvey Dent, who we all know better as Two-Face. So Batwoman visits Julia's room to find potential clues, and Luke enables a camera on her batsuit to take pictures of potential evidence. Batwoman goes downstairs to find Julia's mum tied up with scars, just like we saw at the beginning of the episode, whose throat Julia promptly slashes before escaping.
Yes.
Batwoman brings a page from Julia's yearbook to Mary, who helps her identify her next victim, Veronica May. She tracks it to a makeup artist in the city, which Julia has already hit. Sophie follows Batwoman to the truck, warning her that the crows are fast approaching and they escape via motorcycle. Julia kidnaps Veronica and tortures her over a vat of chemicals. What is it with Gotham and vat of chemicals? Why couldn't they torture someone over a vat of ice cream or something? Honestly, you'd think a vat of chemicals that helped create quite possibly the greatest villain of all time in the Joker, you'd think they'd destroy that place, but it is what it is. So anyway, after the fight, Batwoman asks Sophie if she can really see the two of them in a relationship, or would they just keep it a secret. Sophie agrees and decides she needs to figure out some things with regards to her sexuality. Oh god. The next day, Sophie meets with her mum and officially tells her that she likes women. Her mum tells her she's disappointed in her and leaves. Meanwhile, Mary meets with Kate, who appears to be in a bad mood. Mary thanks Kate for trusting her enough to keep her double life a secret, and hopefully one day she'll feel the same way about her. Also in this episode, we see Alice reading the obituary about Beth's death and finds it unremarkable. She tries to figure out how to exact revenge on August and starts to dig into his practice as Campbell in the process. Alice and her gang go to Mary's clinic to loot her supplies, during which Mary asks if Alice knows Batwoman's secret identity. She confirms as much, which makes Mary even more sad. Alice visits Julia while she's tied up and offers to help them both get revenge on August/Campbell. Alice steals Julia's face, which Julia thinks finally makes her perfect, and uses it to visit Campbell and attack him. She takes him captive and rips off his face, confirming that it's August. Alice asks about Mouse's location, but August begins to laugh because he's dousing Mouse with Scarecrow's fear toxin as a means of torture. Jacob is then confronted by the lawyer of the man who helped him in prison, arguing that his client is still innocent. He confronts one of the crows about it, who reminds him that the man allegedly gunned down and killed Lucius Fox at a convenience store, despite all of the evidence suggesting as much being destroyed. Jacob calls Sophie, suspecting that the crows are destroying evidence and betraying him. So that pretty much wraps up episode 14, which was called Grinning from Ear to Ear. Overall, I would say this was a pretty good episode. As I said at the beginning, not as good as episode 13. I felt episode 13 was a lot more stronger, but there was some good stuff here in episode 14. I did like it, but I think episode 13 was just a little bit better. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up now. What did you think of episode 14? Did you enjoy it? Do you think Mary will eventually find out that Kate is Batwoman? How do you think the relationship between Sophie and Batwoman will play out? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will be back next time for another edition of the Season 1 review series, where I'll be talking about episode 15. So till then, take care everybody and stay safe.